Most men have kissed a woman on the lips 100 times and still left her feeling absolutely nothing. Not because they weren't attractive, not because there was no chemistry, but because they had no idea that the lips, the place every man goes first, are actually one of the least emotionally powerful places you can kiss a woman. And I know that sounds almost impossible to believe, but stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you changes everything. This video is about the 5 kissing spots that spark genuine emotional and physical intimacy in women. Not surface-level excitement, not just a physical reaction. I mean the kind of intimacy that makes a woman feel something deep, something she thinks about hours later, something she describes to her best friend the next morning. And the reason most men never experience that kind of response from a woman isn't because they're doing something terribly wrong. It's because no one ever told them the truth about how a woman's body and emotions are actually connected. There's a gap between what men think creates intimacy and what actually does. Men tend to think intimacy is about intensity, about going hard, going fast, being bold from the start. And women, we're wired completely differently. Intimacy, for most women, is built in layers. It's accumulated through small, precise, intentional moments. And a kiss, in the right place, at the right time, can do more emotional work than an entire evening of perfect conversation. But here's what I really want you to pay attention to as we go through these 5 spots. It's not just the location, it's the psychology behind each one. Because a man who understands why a particular spot matters will always create more impact than a man who's just following a tip he read online. So let's get into it, and I promise, by the end of this, you're going to see physical intimacy in a completely different way. I want to start with the forehead, because this is the one that surprises men the most. A kiss on the forehead is not romantic. At least that's what a lot of men assume. It feels too gentle, too non-sexual, like something you'd see in a movie between a parent and a child. But that assumption is exactly why so many men are leaving an enormous amount of emotional impact on the table. A forehead kiss is one of the most disarming things a man can do, and I mean that in the best possible way. When a man kisses a woman on the forehead, slowly, deliberately, with full presence, it triggers something in her that has nothing to do with physical attraction and everything to do with emotional safety. Here's the psychology. Women are constantly, almost subconsciously, reading their environment for threat. Not in an anxious way, it's just how the female nervous system is calibrated. And when a man kisses her forehead, her brain registers something very specific. This person is not rushing. This person is not taking. This person is protecting. That feeling of being protected, of being seen as someone worth protecting, is deeply intimacy-inducing for women. It's one of the reasons women describe forehead kisses as feeling different from other kinds of kisses. It doesn't feel like want. It feels like care. And care for a woman is one of the most powerful emotional catalysts there is. A man who knows how to be both strong and tender, who can hold a woman's face in his hands and press his lips to her forehead without a word, communicates something about his character that no speech ever could. The forehead kiss says, "I see you, I'm here, you're safe," and that stays with her. Now we shift gears, because if the forehead is about emotional safety, the back of the neck is about something far more primal. The back of the neck is one of the most sensitive areas on the female body, and I don't just mean physically, though yes, the nerve density there is extraordinary. I mean that this particular spot carries a very specific psychological charge that most men have never consciously thought about. Think about what it means for someone to approach you from behind, to be close enough to reach the back of your neck. For a woman, that requires an enormous amount of trust. You are, quite literally, in a position of vulnerability. You can't see the person, you can only feel them. And when a man she trusts, a man she wants, presses his lips gently to the back of her neck, her entire nervous system responds. It's a rush that starts at the point of contact and moves through her whole body. The sensation is almost startlingly immediate. But here's what makes this spot psychologically interesting. That vulnerability, the fact that she can't see him, that she's turned away, that he's choosing to approach her gently in a moment when she has no visual control, that creates an intimacy that face-to-face contact sometimes can't replicate, because she's choosing to trust him anyway. Men who understand this use the back of the neck in quiet, unannounced moments. She's standing in the kitchen, she's looking out a window. He walks up behind her, brushes her hair to one side, and just pauses there for a second before his lips make contact. The pause is part of it. The anticipation builds something, and the kiss, when it comes, lands like a statement. This is one of those spots where the man doesn't need to say a single word, and somehow everything has been said. This next one tends to get the most skeptical reaction when I bring it up. The inner wrist. Really? Yes, really. And let me explain why this is actually one of the most intimate things a man can do, and why it works so differently from what most people would expect. The inner wrist is one of the most exposed and vulnerable parts of the human body. The skin there is thin, the veins are visible. It's a spot that most people don't think about consciously, but there's something almost instinctively intimate about it being touched, let alone kissed. There's a reason why, historically, the wrist has been associated with pulse, with life, with something deeply personal. When a man takes a woman's hand, turns it over so her wrist faces up, and brings it slowly to his lips, he's doing something that reads, on a subconscious level, as deeply intentional, as reverent almost. It's not aggressive, it's not rushed. It says, I notice you. The parts of you that aren't on display, the quiet parts. Women who have experienced this describe feeling an almost startling rush of warmth, not heat, but warmth. It's intimate in a way that feels private, personal, like something that belongs only to the two of them in that moment. And here's the behavioral truth that makes this even more interesting. When a man kisses the inner wrist, he's also creating a sensory memory. The wrist is something she sees constantly throughout her day. Every time she glances at it after that, and she will, the memory of his lips there comes back. Quietly, unexpectedly. That's not an accident. That's intimacy that lasts beyond the moment itself. Now we're getting into territory that most men overlook completely, not because it's hidden, but because they don't understand what it signals. The jaw and jawline. The area just below the ear, along the edge of the face, moving toward the chin. Here's what makes this spot so powerful. The jawline is a transitional zone. It's not the neck. It's not quite the face. It exists between two places. And that in-between quality is exactly what makes it so charged. When a man kisses along a woman's jawline, starting just beneath her ear, moving slowly, he's doing something that requires precision. He has to be close. He has to be deliberate. He has to know what he's doing. And women notice that. Confidence, expressed physically, is one of the most attractive things a man can communicate. Not arrogance, not aggression. Quiet, unhurried confidence. A man who rushes past the jaw to get somewhere else is telegraphing impatience. He's saying, I'm trying to get to the destination, and a woman can feel that. It makes her feel like a stop on a route, not a destination herself. But a man who slows down, who moves along the jawline like he has nowhere else to be, like this exact spot is where he wants to be, that man is communicating something entirely different. He's saying, you are the destination, right here, right now. The psychological impact of that is enormous. Because women are extraordinarily attuned to whether they are being seen or being used. And the jawline, approached with patience and presence, is one of the clearest ways a man can show her which one she is. There's also a physical component here that's worth noting. The area along the jaw and beneath the ear is richly connected to the body's relaxation and arousal responses simultaneously, which means a slow, attentive kiss there can make a woman feel both more calm and more electrically alive at the same time. That combination, safety and electricity, is what most women describe as the feeling of real intimacy. And now we arrive at the one that, in my opinion, is the most underestimated of all five. The collarbone. Not the shoulder, not the chest. The collarbone specifically, that elegant ridge of bone that sits just beneath the throat, framing the upper chest like an architectural detail that was designed to be noticed. Here's the truth about the collarbone. It is one of the most physically sensitive areas on the female body, and almost no one talks about it. The skin there is thin. The area is rich in nerve endings. A light kiss, even just a breath of warmth against the collarbone, can send a very pronounced physical response through a woman's body. But the psychology of this spot goes even deeper than the physical sensation. The collarbone is visible, it's exposed. It's one of the first areas a woman might choose to dress for or dress around, with a neckline, with jewelry. It's a place that, in most social contexts, sits right at the border between what is presented and what is private, public enough to see, intimate enough to be meaningful. When a man kisses a woman's collarbone, he is crossing that threshold with full awareness. He is acknowledging her in a way that is both tender and unmistakably intentional. He's not rushing, he's not moving through. He's arrived somewhere, and he's choosing to stay there for a moment. Women often describe collarbone kisses as the moment they felt the shift, the moment a situation moved from pleasant to something that felt genuinely, deeply intimate. And that's not a coincidence. It's because the collarbone sits at the exact intersection of emotional exposure and physical sensitivity. To be kissed, there is to feel both seen and desired simultaneously. That combination is rare, and when a woman feels it, when a man creates that specific emotional physical crossover, she remembers it, not just that night, for a long time after. So here's what I want you to walk away with. Not a checklist, not a technique, a perspective. Every single spot I've described today has one thing in common. None of them are about taking. They're all about giving attention, giving presence, giving the specific signal that says, I am here, I notice you, and I am not in a hurry. The men who create the deepest emotional and physical intimacy with women are not the men with the best moves. They are the men who have learned to be present in a way that most people, men and women alike, have forgotten in an era of speed and distraction. A woman's body is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a language to be learned. And like any language, fluency comes not from memorizing vocabulary, but from understanding how meaning is made. The forehead says, "You are safe with me." The back of the neck says, "I am here, even when you're not watching." The inner wrist says, "I see the quiet parts of you." The jawline says, "You are not a detour, you are the destination." And the collarbone says, "I am fully present, right here, right now, and there is nowhere else I would rather be." 5 spots, 5 different emotional messages, and all of them delivered without a single word. That is what intimacy actually looks like. Not performance, not technique, presence. And the men who understand that, who slow down enough to speak that language fluently, those are the men women don't forget. That's not a small thing. That is everything. Now, speaking of men who create a response in women without even trying, there's something I haven't talked about yet. Something that has nothing to do with youth, or looks, or any of the things men typically think matter most. It's something older men do, often completely without realizing it, that makes women smile. Genuinely, warmly, in a way that surprises even them. If you've ever wondered why a woman across a room seemed drawn to an older man who wasn't doing anything particularly remarkable, that video explains exactly what's happening. And I think it's going to shift something in the way you see masculinity entirely. It's right here. Watch it next.